No, it can be done. There are a few sort of pub gigs that are sort of not even...
But do get a work permit, though.
Yeah. Absolutely. Make sure you come here legally.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are. The first year that Spargo came over, they booked most of it themselves. They booked the first month before they got here. They booked, 16 dates in the...
And you might play some really weird... I mean, again, I know it's... They were playing some really obscure towns where basically it'd be local kids putting on a once a fortnight, once a month gig. So for them to have, like, from middle of nowhere Canada, that sells tickets in Wakefield or something like that. In London, Manchester, whatever, that means nothing. But, you know,
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, a lot of these gigs, it would almost be a bucket at the front of the stage. But, you know, like the guys in Spargo could sort of pull between £300 and £500 a night with people throwing money in a bucket if they liked them.
Yeah.
You know, but they did that to be playing rather than not be playing.
Right.
You know, but it's not easy. It's not an easy job without an agent or a small promoter, but it can be done. Mm-hmm. You know, you may not be, you know, even if you're not playing the Barflies, there's the Pig and Whistle or something in Bromsgrove. It's nothing, but it gets, 150 kids in a night who are drinking, and there's either a local band or they happen to be Spargo, and they
and you can do your research in anything.
Absolutely.
Easily, there was a list of folk. Yeah, and obviously, these days, find out an
Brickyard
email
in
address.
Carlisle, and there's loads of places around. You've got to do it, but you need time, and you need to put your tour plan together and get it in action, and then you know roughly how much it's going to cost you, and perhaps how much you may get back in, and then you've got to work out how you're going to pay for the difference.
Yeah. I mean, that ultimate part of going there was like, I mean, 90% of the deals they did on their tour was just percentage only.
Right.
Yeah.
They assumed they were going to make no money. It was like they just saved up for 2 years. It was almost like, well, because they love British music, so they just it was almost like, well, we've got to do before we die. We've got to do a tour. But that was a serious level of dedication.
So how far ahead, if you wanted to tour the UK, how far ahead should you plan, do you think?
Oh, if you're doing it remotely yourself, at least a year. Yeah.
I mean, you should be looking now at sort of
summer,
sending stuff to all the offices.
And even just saving money on airfares and things like that. And the work permit thing takes.
And the grant aid takes. Everything takes a while to get into action. But certainly, as I say, I got that phone call about someone wanting a gig next month in London because we're doing PopCom. That's too short. You can't do it. There's no publicity. There's nothing you can do. You've missed all the listings. You need, I always used to say, at least a 13-week lead-in to get any sort of publicity happening, because you've got to get it out to the glosses and the cues and stuff. And it's a massive media here of all shapes and sizes. And unless you've got a media team, it takes time. It's not just a one-man, one-day sending it out. It's not just Triple J and 2 or 3 commercial stations. There's a mass of media. You just go online and look at the amount of media and the amount of announcers. I mean, you can do, if you want to do it physically, you can do 200 CDs in the foyer of Radio 1 in a day, and you've still not guaranteed yourself an airplane. Time.
If you register with the Great Escape now, I know for a fact that they're starting to listen through the applications.
Yeah, for Australian now, because the Australian ones will be the first ones picked.
Yeah. So, and as we've already said, there are showcase events that happen in the UK. Almost always try to target one of those for the starting point, because that creates a story. If you're playing at one of these showcases,
Dot to Dot, for example, which is in Nottingham, Bristol, and they've got a smaller version. It's all on the same weekend.
Yeah.
That's 2 weeks after us.
Yeah,
and that's sort of. So it doesn't have the industry convention side, but it's definitely in terms of getting press and real punters.
Absolutely. And if you've got those two, you can fill in the gaps in between. You can always do a couple of pubs somewhere.
So we're talking. So that is May 2009.
Yeah.
That right now the organisers are putting things in place for and are listening and starting to talk about what bands are going to be performing.
Yeah.
And there's in the handout you're going to get, there's details of the Great Escape and a link to the website where you can find out more information on how to register, etc. So moving on to visas, that seems to be the hot topic at the moment in the music industry.
Where's the article?
Yes. I sent through to the Export Advisors an article in this week's Music Week on visas. So let's have a chat about that. How do you think it, first of all, do Australian acts need a visa to come to the UK?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Absolutely. It seems to be changing from making your application to the Home Office to you need to be sponsored by a company in the UK who will then make the application on your behalf before you can come and play. And it sounds like it's going to be around about December when that kicks in. Yeah. So for everyone who's on this conference, I imagine it applies to everybody then, that you need a company on the ground that has been certified by the Home Office to be credible enough to have the say that that you are a band and that you are coming to play. And I'm not aware of any companies yet that actually have been awarded
sponsorship.
That's right. That's so.
I mean, I think the only way out of that, if there's any sort of heritage where you can hold sort of like the dual nationality or something.
Yeah, well, if you have,
that's the only other way around it.
Well, yeah, if you have an EU citizen passport, then you have no problem coming to the UK.
But apart from that, it's going to be again. It's time. You've got to be starting now for next year.
So if a band is coming over to perform, let's say, at the Great Escape, so the Great Escape would be registered.
I don't know.
It's new legislation coming in.
Yes, we will presumably, and obviously UK agents presumably will register. So events like us. I mean, traditionally, for example, at Glastonbury, they're obviously changing it, but it used to be they just need a letter from us and that will get you because we were Glastonbury, Reading was sort of recognised big festivals, but unfortunately they seem to be determined to make it harder. Maybe they're upset with America,
Yes,
because the Americans basically, well, as you'll know, most of you have made it a lot harder and a lot more expensive. So it's a retaliatory move. Unfortunately, it looks like it's going to affect Australians and Canadians.
Yeah. Do you think it's going to affect the numbers of acts coming over from Australia over the next few months?
It's clearly going to make it more expensive. So just that thing we just talked about booking your own tour is going to be really difficult because somebody at some point is going to have to put their name behind it.
Yeah, I think.
And why would they want to do that if they don't know who you are? And,
Yeah.
And a small indie club promoter in Carlisle I presume, is not going to be registered.
Sure.
No. Yeah.
I think we will be looking at getting registered so that we can potentially provide that service, but we'll have to look into it a little bit more. So that we can say, okay, if you're going to be doing a tour, we can then certify that yes, those gigs are happening, and we can make some application. I'm not too sure exactly how it's all going to fit together. There will be some dodgy people popping up, guaranteed, that will say they'll have even online application forms, so beware, where it'll be company X based in London and get your visa here.com, and you'll lose your money very quickly. So
apparently acts will need something called a sponsorship certificate, and I think it's going to cost something like £10, which is about 20 Aussie dollars. But watch this space, and I'll obviously inform the export advisors whenever I hear things that come through, as it will change. These are the current guidelines. 2 months from now, it might be completely different. So,
but do be very careful, because from what I understand with it, if you turn up at Heathrow on the 1st of December and your documents are not in order, you'll be on the first Qantas flight out.
Yeah, that's right. So so do get your paperwork together and check with UK Border Agency and the British High Commission in Canberra as well. Are good reference points for you, to be sure. So
absolutely. Gone are the days like a few years ago where I had TISM coming over. That'll mean nothing to Martin, but TISM, of course, will probably raise a smile or two already in Australia, where they arrived with all their instrumentation as hand baggage in the arrivals hall, and as you may know, TISM always used to wear masks on stage way before Slipknot. And the last thing I said, don't wear your masks in immigration, because this was about 10 years ago when the IRA and the so-called Troubles were at their height. So what did they do? They pulled their masks out and put their masks on and waltzed up to immigration with their keyboards and their guitars and said, "Oh, we're only here for a holiday." So that was the start of a good tour.
Right.
Anyway, so those days are long gone now. You're not going to get through it like that.
Okay. All right. Rounding up then with last question. So music conferences, there seem to be more and more of these in the UK. what are some of the key ones that take place? Obviously, we have the Great Escape.
Well, in the city.
In the city,
which is in Manchester.
Yeah. How important do you think they are these days?
Well, I mean, they do vary. I mean, I've got something in here. There's the UK Summit, and then there's some other one that's coming to London. What's that?
Well, you got now. Well, even obviously I'm biased here. Because, I mean, on the live side, you got the RMC. That's a very important worldwide conference. Has about 900 delegates. The Live Summit, which is on in a couple of weeks' time, is Audience Magazine, basically trying to set up a rival to the RMC. This is its second year. Who knows what it's going to be worth at. I mean, in the city, Tony Wilson died last year, so it's new management. It was kind of dying as an event. It's on next month, so no one knows at its stage whether it can rescue itself or not. I mean, we actually had 5 times as many delegates than last year.
And it is very targeted at the recording
industry. And also, yes, exactly. The other thing is, it's not as good as, it's definitely not as good as Showcase event.
Right.
Because it's just not organised. It's kind of a weird mixture without going to boring details. I mean, you've got in Europe, Copcom's on actually virtually the same time as in the city. They kind just before.
Yeah, right.
That is obviously still very important in the German-speaking market. I would say, if you're in Europe, it's worth going to.
Yeah.
I would never fly from Australia to go just to Popcom, and certainly never bring a band to it.
No,
because it's just the show. It's all over the city, and by the time you're done all day in that horrible exhibition hall, you're kind of burned out, and it's just not well done. The Showcase side of it, I'm talking now.
What about Muse Expo that year?
Well, I'll say again, Muse Expo, which is is an event in LA. I think they're going to do one in Australia as well. That's new.
Here, aren't they?
That's right. Yeah.
Here as well, sure.
Which is in end of October. So it's the first time it's been. I mean, they're obviously well connected. We're actually, the guys in our team are actually putting the band side of it together. But it's only like two clubs with. Band
I mean, it's not a massive, great showcase event like the Great Escape. It basically takes over Brighton. Let's just explain that. It takes over a place the size of Adelaide.
Right. Yeah, the Great Escape is much more like South by Southwest. But with nowhere near as many bands.
Right.
Because, I mean, I would. Well, I don't know about you guys. I would say we're the only one in terms of bringing a band over to do. I don't think any of the others are actually worth.
No,
absolutely.
As a manager or as a businessman, if you're happy to be in town next month, absolutely. If you can get a free pass for in the city and and Popcorn's actually quite cheap, then definitely you can do. That's worthwhile taking 3 days, but not bringing 10 air flights and planes are nobody important. Yeah,
I think be really careful with what you're trying to achieve at any of these events because they're all very different. A trade show is different to a conference, is different to a showcase event. And if you're bringing a band, make sure it's for showcases. And they'll all say we've got a showcase on, but really in the UK it is the Great Escape. And in Europe, a great one is Eurosonic, which is held in Holland. But that's probably
only for European acts.
It's only for European acts.
Exactly. So
I mean, Needham is slightly improved its live side, I understand.
Very expensive.
Yes, it's horribly expensive. Yes, and it used to be horrible. The Martinez Ballroom was the main gig, which is awful, and beer's £15 a pint. But apparently they've got a Spiegel tent now. But they charge you an arm and leg.
Yeah,
and also virtually none of the live music industry, which is actually the people you want to see, or the tastemakers. None of them go to meet them.
No.
It's basically largely music publishers.
It's publishing conference.
Yeah. Whereas, I mean, the Great Escape we had at least 300 small promoters came to Great Escape last year because we actually actively encouraged them to come down and give really cheap deals and put on a party.
Right. Yeah. Did any of you attend London Calling this summer?
Well, I walked in. I was in an award ceremony there.
I spent 10 minutes at it.
Yeah, I walked through and witnessed my not winning an award and then left. I met Cherie Blair. That's good.
But again, it's a trade show, like an exhibition hall with stalls, and I don't think that concept works anymore. And also, what is the point of spending money having a stall? And again, there is, if you look on their website, there is a showcase side to it, but trust me, no one goes to their showcase side. So I just think...
And ILMC,
one
tried showcases, but it's never really taken off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's really for some you guys to get together.
It's a
it's a business side of things. It's not a live side of things.